According to the Judiciary Committee, the federal government, the Treasury Department, is spying on your finance. I'm reading from a press release. Federal investigators apparently asked banks to search and filter customer transactions by using terms like MAGA and Trump. You know, because anytime I Venmo my friends, I Venmo them saying, "Thanks for the nachos, MAGA Trump." Anyway, they asked to filter customer transactions by using terms like MAGA and Trump as a part of an investigation into January 6th, warning that purchases of religious texts could indicate extremism, the House Judiciary Committee revealed on Wednesday. So if you purchased a Bible or used MAGA or Trump in any of your personal transactions, it's very possible the federal government could have glommed onto that and then deemed you a terrorist or a domestic terrorist or an insurrectionist or whatever the heck they're calling people nowadays. The House Judiciary Committee and its subcommittee on the weaponization of the federal government has been conducting oversight of federal law enforcement receipt of information about American citizens without process and its engagement with the private sector. In other words, the House committee is saying, hey, what are you doing that the American people don't know about, and what should we know about? Well, this is a big one. You're going to hear this word FinCEN a lot. It is an acronym for the Financial Crimes Enforcement Network that is, I believe, a part of the Treasury Department. Here is what I believe this is Jim Jordan, chair of the Oversight Committee, saying this. Materials included a document recommending the use of generic terms like Trump and MAGA to search Zelle payment messages, as well as a prior FinCEN analysis of lone actor / homegrown violent extremist indicators. Now, pause really quick. The idea, I guess, if we were to try and justify this, would be, okay, January 6th happens, January 6th is not good. We can all agree on that. Without getting into the nuance of that, because every single time I say that, I know there's a ton of comments that come in saying, people were just walking around the Capitol. Yes, that is also true, and people were beaten indoors and cops with flagpoles, which was not cool. So without getting into the nuance of January 6th, the federal government decides we're going to look into a bunch of people around the country by looking at their financial records, what they sent in messages on Zelle, where they went, what are the indicators of them being a lone actor or violent extremist indicators. According to this analysis, FinCEN warned financial institutions of extremism indicators that included transportation charges such as bus tickets, rental cars, or plane tickets for travel with no apparent purpose. That's where I start to go, hold on. The government doesn't need to know where I'm going, let alone why I'm going. I mean, for tax purposes, everywhere I go all the time is for business purposes. I would like to let the IRS know that outright and up front. But also, this is the thing that irritates me freaking the most. I bought a truck 3 months ago, 4 months ago, and I bought it in cash because my wife and I save. We are conservatives in the traditional sense. We conserve our resources and our finances. I had to take a decent amount of cash out of the bank to buy this particular vehicle. And when I did, not only was I not allowed to take the entire sum of money out of one bank, so I had to go to multiple branches throughout the day trying to come up with this sum of money. I had to go to 3 different banks to take out that much money, and every single time they said, well, that's a lot of cash that you're taking out, sir. What do you plan on doing with that? My natural response to that is, none of your effing business. Why do you care? It's my money. I get to use it whenever I want it. Give it to me. But the federal government, who regulates all of the banking institutions, says to them, you have to ask where people are taking money out. Because apparently the Treasury Department, or FinCEN, or whoever this is saying that transportation charges without an apparent purpose is somehow an indicator of something? I freaking hate that. I'm going to this place and I'm going to that place because F off, you don't need to know. They flagged that or purchases of books including religious texts. All right, I'm buying a Bible. Now I'm labeled an extremist by the US Treasury Department. Sick. Now again, if there is a tiny bit of justification, maybe it could be to try and flag down who were the violent people at the January 6th riots. But just like the Patriot Act, there was no end in sight. And up until this point, This doesn't indicate that they've stopped or have any plans to stop more than 3 years later. So books like religious texts and subscriptions to other media containing extremist views. Now, if you're a lefty on the side of the lefty politics, which most of the government is, because lefties are the only ones that expand the government, and if you're trying to protect the institution that employs you, yeah, you're going to be a lefty. If you're a lefty in the modern day, half of America is quote-unquote extremists. If you are to the right of Mitt Romney, you are an extremist in their eyes. So, subscriptions to media containing extremist views. I saw Fox News somewhere in there, so if you subscribe to or watch Fox News, you might be an extremist according to the government. The committee contained, and this is where it gets really interesting, the committee obtained documents showing that FinCEN distributed slides prepared by KeyBank to other banks to explain how they could use merchant category codes to detect customers whose transactions may reflect potential active shooters who may include dangerous international terrorist / domestic homegrown violence lone wolves. What the heck does that mean? So they looked at merchant categories to figure out who was a lone wolf actor, and then used some pretty scary language to justify it? Jim Jordan said the slides instruct financial institutions. Okay, so what kind of transactions are we talking about and where from? Jim Jordan said that these slides instructed financial institutions to query transactions using those codes, like small arms codes. If you shopped at a sporting and recreational goods and supplies store, you could be tracked using the keywords Cabela's and Dick's Sporting Goods and Bass Pro Shops, among others. So, if we're recapping here, they quote-unquote justified this to look into the January 6 people, and then it never ended, and in this, according to this, there's no end in sight or no indication that they have stopped doing this. But using the January 6 thing 3 years ago, they are justifying the ability to look into whether or not you went to a sporting and recreational store such as Cabela's, Dick's, or Bass Pro Shops, among others. I think Big Five was in there too, but that's in the long list of places that if you shop there, you are possibly a threat to the government. I also wonder too, especially in some of the not deep blue states, I think a lot about these theater owners in Tulsa, Oklahoma that we rented a theater from to do one of the comedy shows. And they were Democrats. They were said, yeah, we're Democrats, and we don't necessarily agree with what you say on stage and all of that, but just know that Tulsa Democrats are not California Democrats. We are gun-toting Democrats in the great state of Oklahoma. And I really appreciated them, one, letting us do the show, but two, kind of saying, look, this is what we are, but also explaining that Democrats differ on a scale. And what I mean to say by that is, how many Democrats shop at Cabela's or Dick's Sporting Goods or Bass Pro Shops? I would say that 70 to 80% of Americans as a whole would be under surveillance according to the codes used by the freaking Treasury Department to try and locate and identify domestic terrorists. Holy cow.